That's $1 million question, definitely.
So, like now for the sort of multi-million dollar question. You ready?
All right.
What does it mean to you to be a black composer?
What does it mean to me to be a black composer?
I'm going to start off by saying that I hate that term. Yeah, there's so many reasons why I just hate that term, black composer. I hate the description of us people as black people. We're the only people who are referred to by a color. And it ends up becoming meaningless. It's also a sort of cheapened shorthand way that allows some people to think they understand what is meant by that.
Well, firstly, I'm not keen on it being a label, in the sense that your music should be what puts you forward. The fact that I happen to be Russian, Eritrean, born in the UK is just what it is. I think it's great to draw on heritage and what influences you, and it's also nice to be at the forefront of, whether you want it to call it a group of composers who are classed as BAME or black, then I'm happy to champion, and I think it's necessary to sort of do your bit to shine a light on. There are different stories, that there are different influences that can contribute to classical music, not just, somebody that lives in a cottage in the middle of the countryside and has a very sort of idyllic way of composing, which is a way that a lot of people seem to think that composers operate in. It's not, that doesn't happen.
I think I'm just a composer, really. I think the black composer is a tag that people add to try and qualify, divide and rule, to put things in a box.
But yeah, I'm never too keen on labels, because it automatically brings, okay, he's a black composer, what does that mean? Does he write, music that is tribal? Is it jazzy? Is it hip hop? No, it's not any of that. It's my own type of stuff, whether it's influenced by lots of different things, yes, but it's not so black and white.
Sometimes it helps to get funding, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it sets up projects where you're given a voice, but sometimes it leaves others asking the question, well, why were you given that voice? What qualifies you to have that space? It's a difficult question to answer, really.
My position then, and it's probably not changed now, was I'm a composer. I am not black, I'm a composer. I have African heritage. I'm not denying that, I never will. That's part of who I am, that's part of my identity. But I'm not, black is not a definition for me in any way whatsoever, in any description. Because it's just a physical description by someone. I'm not black anyway. None of us are black. So what are we actually saying? We need to be clear. So that if I don't accept black, I definitely don't accept black British.
So for example, so you'll say, people will say black music, And black music is distinct from a black composer, because from the time you juxtapose those words, black and composer, you're immediately talking about a different type of music. Anyhow, so suffice to say that I hate the term. I won't deny that because of the term, or because of the category, I've been given opportunities to be heard. Without the term, I would not have been heard, because the world is such that it seems impossible, or it seems very difficult for Western Europe to conceive of music in the classical tradition coming from places other than Europe, and coming from composers who are other than what they are used to.
I'm either British or not. And then I will then, so basically these are, when you talk about identity, and anyway, British, that's a whole nother ball game. I'm either English, because I was born in London, so I'm either English or not. And I'm quite happy someone else to decide that for me. So people in England can go, yeah, he's English or he's not. And either way, I'm fine with it. But the British thing confuses things, because it starts to get involved with empire and all these Commonwealth and colonial and blah. That's a different story. That's a different part of the story. But identity, where I'm born and what that means, is very specific, and we should be very specific. I'm born in England, so presumably I'm English. That's a question, because some people will say yes and some people will say no, and either way I have no problem. I'm not born in Africa, but I'm African as well. So some people will say this, some people will say that. For me, it's fluid. The only thing that's guaranteed is I'm human and I'm born on earth, and I have these heritages, and you can do whatever you want with the rest of it.
And of course, you know, as I say, I don't deny that I've been given opportunities to be heard because I'm a black composer. But for me, that's an unfortunate situation. It should not be like that.
Do you like the term black composer?
No, I don't think it's useful in... It almost becomes programmatic in the sense that those who might have a better understanding of what that might mean, you know, the idea of black composer as being a champion for the greater cause is how I would like to understand it. But a lot of the time it comes across as black composer, ergo he writes or she writes in a certain way that is to do with their blackness, which is not handy for the music that I write, and also the story or the sort of what I'm trying to say, really.
Not really, because I think when you say that, it can be limiting in that it kind of places a supposition on what you're going to say, when in actual fact you may be somebody that has a very eclectic outlook that bursts out of the seams of that definition. And so to use it, it may be useful to try and quantify what groups of people create, but the reality is that they often do things which defy the definition because of what they create, which is so eclectic that it just makes a nonsense of that attempt to categorise the work of a group of people.
But I'm clear with what is part of my journey. Being born in Europe and the experiences culturally and all that things, and particularly in Britain, are part of my journey, so I don't deny that. Having African heritage is part of my journey, so you'll never see me deny those things. But in terms of definition, the definitions of things keep changing. So I'm not going to go all the way round the round the fairground according to someone else's definitions. I go straight to the point.
Every single composer who comes from wherever they come from, because everybody has different heritage. Everybody, most people, you go back a little bit, we have some kind of different heritage. We have different experiences. Those are there to be shared. They're there to be shared, talked about, played with, exposed to everyone, so that we understand, it's like understand all the different languages that are being spoken in this world. I just find it really baffling.
Where I was born is not going to change today or tomorrow. My heritage is not going to change today or tomorrow, and nor is my genealogy. Those things are real and permanent. As long as I'm here, they're permanent. And so it's making sense of those. Sometimes we get bamboozled into making sense of things that are nonsensical. So basically, Black British, and what does that mean? That's someone else's journey, really, because nobody can tell me what British and English means, really, properly. What does it mean to be British and what does it mean to be English? And what's the difference? And who's defined that? Give me the definition and then I'll tell you, oh yeah, that I fit or I don't fit. But people use English and British interchangeably like this. And you ask me, no. When you're less confused, come to me and then I'll give you clarity on where I stand.
I just say BAME.
BAME,
yeah.
Okay, so BME or BAME. Do you identify with that as a label? Would you describe yourself as a BAME composer?
Yeah, I think it's a bit more inclusive, I think, in that sense. And I think my understanding of BAME is it's more of a movement rather than, like a tick box survey of, are you black, white or other type of sort of labeling. It's more of a inclusive in the sense that I'm mixed, and it covers my own background in that sense. My mum's white, my dad's black. I grew up in the UK, which is very multicultural. So for me, in my head, it sits in a better place in the terms of representing where I come from. At the same time, I think in the ways and the context it's been used generally within the arts, there's a greater understanding of the idea of BAME in the sense that, it's important for those stories of people from different backgrounds and heritages to be told. So I would rather use that term than black composer, I think, for me.
I have no choice but to identify with it. Every time I try to apply for something or submit a proposal for something, some project that I'm working on, it's looked on in the light of BAME. So it's not out of a desire not to stand with or a desire to stand with. It's this thing of, separating off people.
I think it's the same sort of thing. I think it's about this modern attempt to define, categorize, label, and put people and things that are created in boxes. And sometimes the things that are put in those boxes are not placed in the right place. And sometimes it stops things from happening that should be happening, which are clearly outside of those confines. And I think sometimes it's more about administrators who have a job to do to carve up certain amounts of funding, opportunities, and in so doing, these definitions come about that in some cases are useful to them more so than to the creatives.
The first time I heard that term, I was in Cheltenham at the Cheltenham Festival, and people were using it around the table, and I did not know what it meant. And I was the only person, BME or BAM or whatever you call it, at the table. And so they were saying, yes, because BAME or whatever they were saying, these terms, BME or BAME or whatever it's called. And they were going, yes, because the BAM and the BAM, and I was saying all this stuff. So I was like, oh, right, they keep using this term. I don't know what it means, but they keep using this term. And then it got a bit embarrassing because at one point they said something and it was clear that I didn't know what they were talking about. And then they had to tell me the term, oh, black and minority ethnic. I was like, oh, right, okay, oh, I guess that's me then. And I actually like the fact that I didn't know the term because that shows you how relevant it is to me. It's about that relevant.
But again, I'm not a fan of labels because anyone has a multitude of different ways that they would like to be described, and to sort of distill anything to a word is always a touchy and a tricky subject. So, yeah.
Yes, I suppose there is a sort of a difference. Maybe one is for monitoring purposes, which is useful. But then it always, you always sort of have in the back of your mind, there's a pot for BAME music.
I think the first seems to be about one group of people. The second term might be broader in its attempt to quantify and categorize a certain group of people. But I think the agenda is similar in that it's about putting people in a category, a box.
But it's sort of not the first time that labels have been imposed on sort of certain...
But I find some of them quite funny ones. As I said, BAM, BOM, whatever it's called. My thing is, I'm a human being born on planet Earth. I make music. It's very simple. As I go through, check this. I'm in Nigeria. I've been there for 4 years. I'm a black composer. Hi, everyone. What's that mean? In Nigeria. One, they go, You're Igbo. You're a white man.
The other thing, actually, that I have to say, and that's really important, is that the title that I've been given, black composer, if I go back to Trinidad and say that, call myself a black composer, people laugh in my face. The first thing people say, you are black, you're red. Those words, those titles, those categories are completely meaningless. We have our own problems to do with color and class and so on. But they do not define you within the country. You are a Trinidadian first and foremost. Someone else might be a Barbadian, but they are a Barbadian regardless of their color. You are Jamaican, regardless of your color. You are simply a Jamaican. And you have the right to express yourself as a Jamaican, so as I have the right to express myself as a Trinidadian.
As you travel the world, you realize what's local and what's international and what's relevant and what's not relevant. And that thing is not relevant. What's relevant is there is an experience. That experience is the African diasporic experience. People that left Africa for various reasons at various times, they carry their African identity, but they have a journey and they have new experiences in new places. That could be in Britain, that could be in the Americas, that could be in the Caribbean. That is a relevant story to me. I learn things from that story. That story is a powerful one. A lot of art, a lot of culture has come out of that experience. Yes. That is to do with my identity. But all the rest of it, about how people look, has no relevance to me whatsoever. Because I can't make music from that. How can I make music from BAM or black or anything? That doesn't mean anything to me. I've spoken about griot tradition. I've spoken about choras. I've spoken about culture. I've spoken about Sunjata Keita, 13th century Malian this, Bach, Bartok. And BAM? You gotta be joking. That doesn't make sense.
People don't talk about yellow people. You don't talk about fellow Europeans in the same way. I'm saying fellow Europeans. Actually, what I'm saying is you don't talk about fellow white people in the same way. People are referred to by their nationality. What's so difficult about referring to someone by their nationality or by their name?
It doesn't make sense, really, if you think about it in the context. The Moorish connections in Spain between the Islamic culture that was in Europe in the 1400s, and all these syntheses that have already happened. And then you're talking like we just got here, like culture, even the word diversity. What does that mean? Really? What does that actually mean, really? Because in all the years I've been here, I haven't really seen certain things change much. When we look at the orchestras, what does that mean, actually? When we look at the composers, what does that mean out there?
The wealth of Western Europe has been built from the human and natural resources of the Caribbean, India, Africa, and Latin America. Therefore, it is completely incomprehensible to me that Europe can think of itself, of its culture, without taking on board all of those other places that enriched, that added to its culture, that made music, concerts, culture, writing possible. It seriously leaves me speechless. I don't understand how any culture, anybody who thinks of themselves as a cultured person can imagine culture does not embrace those who are part of it, however they entered. That's just my position on it.